Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Shamshir Sound video. Took a long break. I think it was a month or two away from YouTube uploads, but I'm back at it. We're going to have some consistent uploads from here on. So apologize for the break, guys. Really been busy reorganizing stuff in my life. Really busy with work, but now I've been able to balance things a little bit better. Life's all about balance. And tonight I'm going to be talking about my song Nemesis. So if you guys haven't checked that out, listen to it. I love it. It's a hard electro track. And I almost didn't release this one. Sometimes, we get stuck on just a drop idea and we don't release the track. And it's okay if you just push out that track. Sometimes, we have to remember we can't always make incredible bangers. We have to settle. And that's what I did with this track. I had a cool break idea and I had a cool second drop idea. And I'm going to elaborate what I did in this track. So in this song, it's kind of split up. I like to organize things, and it's split up through automations, a lot of effects. The effects are important to give motion and to give background and ambience to the track. But I'm going to just jump right into the heart of the content because I know a lot of people are interested in what's going on with the bass. So let's check out the bass. So here is the bass. One thing with the bass is that the bass has a lot of automation going on, not only with pitch, but opening a filter, kind of was messing around with it a lot. I'm a big lover of just automating a lot inside of the synth to give it motion. And Dada Life talks about that a lot too, is you can play something with one note, but a lot of times we think LFO, okay, wobble, LFO, dubstep. But we can make LFOs do some stuff and give motion and give groove. And that's exactly what's going on with this synth. So 11, that's where the bass is going. And there's not a lot of processing on this one. Very subtle. There's a cutoff around 20 kilohertz, cutoff around 22 hertz, just to remove some of the super low end rumble. A little bit of saturation. And little bit of Camel Crusher, one of my favorites. Same with Saturn, really good. Passive EQ is on there. This is kind of like a hidden gem. The passive EQ has a really, really nice low pass filter that I recommend you guys try out on your individual tracks or even on the master. It's so pleasing to the ear. You think 18 kilohertz is going to kill a lot of high end, but it's very pleasing. I think it's like a 40 dB roll off, and it sounds really nice. It adds a little sheen, a little sparkle, a little air, and it just is very pleasing. Really nice sounding equalizer. And that's really it. There's just a little bit EQ. And so let's just solo this bass. So some automation going on. I think I have this knob here powered. And there's another one that I'm automating. But essentially, I'm just messing around with drive and low pass. We have a sub oscillator, -24 square. And that has a lot of cool harmonics if you use a square wave. -12 square. And I turned this one off because I had so much distortion going on that there was a lot of harmonics and it sounded good. How do I get to this point? I always start little by little. I just build blocks. And so when I look back at this synth, I wouldn't tell you, hey, I did XYZ equals ABC, blah, blah, blah. But what I do is that I usually always start with a sub synth and I just experiment. There's never the exact same way that I approach it, because we see it like, hey, Ali, why do you have a dimension expander and chorus on a bass? And well, to that I say, it is mono sound, monophonic, one voice, but I also wanted a little bit of width, because if we turn off the chorus and the dimension expander, it's right in the middle. And I wanted this to be like an all-encompassing, fat synth. Not to take up all the space, but I wanted it to take up a nice amount of that space in the stereo spectrum. That combined with the kick really gave the track a lot of power. The kick, all it has is just sausage fattener on there. 1% color, 1% fatness, just to give a little bit more drive. This way there's a really nice relationship between the kick and the bass. And from there, I looked to what I can add to kind of give a little bit more groove, pulling inspirations from guys like Ali James, all different types of inspiration. So there's a little wob here. And that wob, anytime I want to do like wobbles, I either automate to the LFO. So I either do like a filter. I either do something like that. Or in this case, I use the virtual analog. And I use the virtual analog because you can mess with the sync. If you put a LFO inside of the sync, then you can get some cool results. Because this is without it. So it's being completely driven by that sync. So really cool stuff that you can do. Experiment with a virtual analog inside of these ones here. Use the saw sync and automate the sync knob and see what you can do. You can make some cool little wobbles, maybe a little bit off the grid. It doesn't have to be so quantized. Let's take a look at some of the layers. Otherwise, this video is going to be dragging forever. So there's a lot of stuff like here, for instance, there's a lot of effects going on. And I'd like to show you guys how this gives like movement. And we'll come back to some of the kind of different stuff because I also sampled my cat and put my cat in here. But I want to show you guys the other elements that really give motion to this track. So that part was like, whoa, whoa, that cat. That's the cat synth actually there. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So the cat synth, one thing about that is that I did that because I wanted a call and response, like a drop A, drop B. And when this synth plays back, so we have like part A, and then we have like the spook part, where it has some more like yoys, it has more of like the bit crush stuff. If I play this part right here, I'll explain what I got in Massive. So there's two of those yoys going on. So that one, it approaches it slowly with LFO, and so I use the sample and hold, and you can use it kind of like almost a performer. It slowly goes into a lower crushed state. And then I had a sustained one. These sounds are very simple to make. If you want sounds like this, go ahead and download my Signature Sounds Volume 1 shameless self-promo. But it does have some yoy sounds in there and some samples also. All it really is just simple waveforms, simple low pass, and the sample and hold inside of Massive is what really gives it that crush. And I find that the sample and hold, the lower you go, the older the kind of Android sound will appear. The higher you go, the more kind of like childish it'll appear. And that's why when I automated this one, it almost is like, it's like animating. It's hard to explain. It just really has to be heard. Let's go to the cat sound, because this is the cat sound. So possessed cat. Now there's a lot of effects on this. I'm gonna play it just dry. What it sounds like original. I pitched it down. So this was originally like the cat growling, and it was ran through like FabFilter Saturn, a variety of stuff. I pitched it down. I was just experimenting. And then from there on, I crushed it, put on some EQ. It was kind of like It was kind of dark, so I added a little bit of like a little bit of boost to the high end, a little bit of cut to kill a lot of the lows, because there's a lot of lows going on in that sound. Some sausage fattener to drive it, some camel crusher, again, a little bit of compression. Pancake 2, which I've made a video about. This is just to help it give a little bit of movement, and we can hear that in action. And some reverb and some endless smile just to give it a little bit of wetness. Because here is it dry. Right, so that's the dry, and it's okay, but it needed some movement, it needed some clarity. And so that really helps glue it together for part B, because that way it's a call and response. And I liked the result. It was difficult, definitely. I felt that the part B versus part A, when we come here, it was a little difficult. So I definitely feel like a part B was a little bit harder, but overall I think it sounded decent and I was happy with the results. So ultimately, effects, little layers every now and then, like some layers are very quiet, like this one is probably like minus 30 dB. Some layers more prominent. So I think all those effects do a big role in giving motion to the track. And there were some one-shots also, I believe right here. That's just an omnisphere vocal one-shot. It's a pretty simple track. I did sample myself for the vocals, so before we go to drop 2, I'm gonna just show you guys what I did here. So I think this is my vocal right here. I just recorded a bunch of stuff. And you can see the waveform is terrible. And I was just kind of messing around. I'm like, okay, what can I come up with? And I was really happy with this part where I'm like, let me see your hands in the air. And so I just kind of like chopped it up. And that's the thing. That's the beauty about EDM, is like you don't really need to go ham on lyrics a lot of time. It's just about a vibe. It's about a tone, a setting, atmosphere. And I was actually pretty happy with it. I was going to omit this. This was actually just put in as like filler. It wasn't actually going to be the end all for this track. But I liked it because it started with like the clap automating with volume. So at the break here, the clap is quiet. We work into it with the vocal. And we have this kind of this evil melody playing back inside of Massive.
Let me see your hands in the air. Nemesis.
Definitely really like the drop, and I really like this build. It's quick, it's fast, it's gets to the point. The vocals, they were, again, no certain rules, just kind of went with a vibe.
Let me see your hands in the air.
And with the vocals, I had a gate to kind of kill a little bit of the clicks because I didn't denoise my vocal. So I wanted it to be to the point where the gate just chopped off areas that were very quiet, if there was background effects or something, just to kind of declick it. Had a Pro Q3 on there. Now this one, you'd be like, whoa, what the hell's going on? There was a lot of weird frequencies that I didn't like in my vocal because it was sung in a room that didn't have proper acoustics or anything, no acoustic dampening and whatnot. So there were a lot of harsh frequencies that were resonating. So no, you don't have to copy this. This was just done by ear with the dynamic EQ. Valhalla Ubermod, I used this a lot in the past, and this is a great way, guys, if you want to add a width. Really nice chorus type of plugin, and it can help to really make something wide, which is what I really wanted, because if we play this dry, check this out.
Let me see your hands in the air. Let me see your hands in the air. Let me see your hands.
It's not terrible, but it's very right in the middle. No fatness, no wetness.
Let me see your hands in the air.
And so I really wanted to make it more epic. And so similar plugins again, passive EQ. This time did a high pass around 38 hertz, 39 hertz. Didn't go really more beyond that because as male vocalists, especially if we pitch it down, we have a lot of juicy low frequency information. So didn't want to remove too much from there. Sausage fattener again, probably not much. Ooh, there's actually a lot going on there. So this is helping to add a little bit of low mid coloring, a little bit of EQ color, a little bit of fatness, and Camel Crusher on there just to drive it a little bit more. And the fruity reverb is doing a little bit. I think most of the wetness is actually coming from Endless Smile, and feel free to use Endless Smile as like a quick and easy DIY reverb or DIY add wetness to a track. This vocal Nemesis, it was part of the same recordings done, and I just kind of left it as is. Look, it still says untitled. Like I just left it as is, and I didn't mind it. It worked. I remember I was listening to clips of Nemesis. Like, of course, this is inspired by Resident Evil 3, and yeah, just kind of went with the flow. In the break, of course, the drop is also being teased, the like drop lead, because the drop lead is high pitch, and I love the polarity between the thick bass and the really high pitch blistering lead. So the lead, if we find that lead, I believe it's here, lead saw. So that lead saw is massive also. And the big thing is that because the bass was so powerful, prominent, I had to play a lot with detune, vibrato, also panning, and just to make sure it kind of gets out of the way. And that's the thing, is if everything lands on the same beat, then it's hard to make space. But if you shuffle something a little bit ahead, a little bit behind, all of a sudden now things can fit a lot better. And so this lead, really loved the result. It took a lot of time, and it's pretty simple actually. It's just saw waves and just interesting harmonics going on. This one, the -29. So it sounds like Oscillator 1 is the powerhouse with this one. But really what's giving this the power is the performer. So the performer is messing with this LFO, the low pass filter, and LFO 6 has a sync of 4 panning between left and right. Also with the reverb too, playing around with the reverb, I believe, on the playlist, kind of just automating it to the point where when it ends and it hits part B of the drop, it's wetter. It creates kind of this canyon, this large trail. So don't be afraid to experiment, guys. That's the key, really, is just experiment, try new things, and just come out of the comfort zone and do weird stuff. Because when I go to the second drop, this really blew my mind when I made this lead right here. If I can find it. Okay. The 8-bit lead. And of course the lead had, again, similar processing, like not too much going on, killing some of the low end. There was like a weird resonating frequency here that I wanted to reduce a little bit. I killed a lot of the low end, 300 hertz, which is not something I typically do. But with this track, it made sense because it was a really blistering thin lead with that fat bass. A little bit of saturation to boost the treble also in Saturn. Some sausage fattener again, 1%, Camel Crusher. So, you know, like it's pretty it's pretty standard when it comes to the processing. Now the 8-bit lead is probably what I love about this track because it's unexpected. The drop comes to this part where Let's play back.
Nemesis.
So it's all those intricacies and small things that glue everything together in this track. And the 8-bit part is so beautiful. It was heavily inspired by like the Resident Evil theme, you know, like spooky stuff, like all the horror games, but also Wolfgang Gartner with his like heavy ARP use, heavy like melodies. So one thing that I did with this was that it was a tough one doing this one, but at the moment I had an inspiration and I just capitalized off on it. It's important when you have a thought or something to quickly punch it out in the synth, in the mic. And with this one, if we play like this synth, so what's going kind of crazy is the 8-step. If I remove the amp, so it kind of sounds like this kind of weird dying synth, but the 8-step is insane because the 8-step is not synced, so it kind of has a little bit of this weird motion going on. The key though is that it's automating +3 back to normal, +3 back to normal, and that is kind of giving it this evil type of sound, combined with that A-step not only making go up and down in pitch, but also up and down a little bit of a chorus, up and down and a little bit of reverb. And LFO is also doing kind of the same motion as some of the other stuff, a little bit of panning to the left and right. So when you have that pitch, the result is you get this, which is very unsettling, you know? It's like, I just love the sound. I love what I got. And with this one, I was just kind of cycling through different stuff. I think I made the patch and I was using the randomize feature, which I have a video covering over. And I was just kind of going through different wavetables and then just one clicked and I'm like, whoa, that sounds really cool. So sometimes you guys will want to try out stuff other than, you know, 0, -12, +12, or like sevenths. Sometimes you want to try something that's just really strange and really different, and you'll thank yourself. You'll be like, whoa, this is sick. What also helped, I think, to give that ominous vibe was a little bit of a bit crush and the frequency shifter. Let's turn that off. And now on. So it gives this kind of this like resonance to it. So that really helped a lot too. And overall, I really liked that because it was a segue into like returning back to the drop. Because typically, you know, drop finishes were at the break, but no, here I made kind of this little build up here with the snares, 4 bars, and I came back to a drop. And I kind of like this because it was like a throwback to when I used to make tracks where like it was drop 1 and then drop 2 and drop 3, and it's like, Ali Nadem, what do you? It's just drop, 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 which is cool. It's nice to do something that's not so gridlocked to like the standard approach of like, oh, 30-second intro, 15-second build up, 45-second drop, or 1-minute drop. And so it still has those elements in the sense of like structure because the drop is at 1 minute. But kind of took me back to my good old days where I tried something new. When I came to back to the drop, I also spiced it up in the sense that I really opened up the bass line. So if we listen to the bass, at this point I'm like balls to the walls. I'm just like, I completely opened that filter because here, so I completely opened it up. I really wanted to go full force with that here. So that's really the key is with your bass, guys, with Massive. Do a little meticulous design. Every little bit counts, and really mess with the phase modulation. And when you guys do a bass line inside of Massive, and you want to replicate something like what I have here, turn on the button here so that the phase is always going to be restarting, so that it's like the phase is always like solid. It's always staying solid. So if you do a monophonic bass and you want it to be consistent, of course you can make it wide in effects and using dimension expander afterwards. But the key is, if you guys are using this and you want a monophonic bass that's consistent, turn on the oscillator phase with this button here. And then you can experiment and you can be like, okay, well, if I move this, and then all of a sudden now you have like a tweaked version of what you have. And so the oscillator phase plays a lot, really well in tandem with this modulation oscillator, because when you turn that on, stays consistent, the phase, and you can mess around with the gate to get your desired sound. And so really powerful here. Don't underestimate this by any means. That's pretty much it. I did add some more chords here. This was like kind of a last second layer that I added, just like a preset in Nexus. Let's play this back. So that's just like a D sharp, like a chord. This track is in D sharp, and D sharp is probably one of my favorites when it comes to the harmonic minor melodies. Yeah, a lot of effects going on again. Just did some copy paste action. Most of these effects, guys, are available in my signature sounds pack, a lot of them, and it's important to keep reusing your sounds so that you can quickly work. Who wants to remake white noise and remake this and this and this, you know? Like, there's some stuff that's redundant to make. You know, like a chef is not going to go, I'm going to go mine salt at the mine. No, he's just going to buy some Himalayan sea salt, some sea salt action. Towards the end, just made kind of a simple outro. I believe Kickstart is being automated here. Yeah, so use Kickstart. It's a great way, because when I was like real noob, what I would do is I would high pass the kick in the intro and outro. All you got to do is just make the kick shorter, whether you want to use like free balance, whether you want to automate the volume. It'll be easier, quicker, and simpler to do. I recommend it a lot when you're doing intro outros, and really simple track ultimately. I don't know how much time I spent on this one, 22 hours. So, but I did come back to it. It was a track where like I worked on the drop, because I always work on the drop first, and I kind of worked around it, but then I was kind of stagnating, and then I returned to it and I'm like, you know what, I got to put this one out, because like this track, the drop is lovely. I love the drop. And automations are key. Just make sure, guys, you stay organized. I hope this was kind of insightful as to kind of what I did. Every track is different. Every Canvas project is different. And it's all about the layers and getting that everything kind of in their own zone. When we play back the drop, there's a lot of stuff being routed. What I like to do at times too is like route many effects to one track. So I'll have like effects no sidechain, effects sidechain, effects 300 hertz sidechain. So it's okay to route multiple stuff into one send. Of course, if it's not like clipping through the roof, but it definitely saves you time and space on your mixer channel. So really this track, kick focused, bass focused, with that thin, nice melody blistering through. The 8-bit lead, of course, was very juicy. I don't think a lot of people expected that 8-bit lead. So it's good to do stuff where there is anticipation, you build up something, but there's also like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Like it's refreshing, I'd say. So thank you guys if you made it this far. This was probably a really long video, much longer than I anticipated. And more videos are going to be coming. Make sure you guys leave a comment. Let me know what you guys need help with, what kind of videos that you guys want to see. And I will see you guys in the next Shamshir Sound video. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Going to be making a thank you pack for hitting the 1,000 subscribers. and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.